I'm Tim. Today we have a very special guest. An actress who has survived the high drama of a prison laundry to the suburban scandal of Erinsborough. Her credits include TV series such as Cop Shop, The Flying Doctors, MDA, Blue Heelers, Fisk, the miniseries Stark, films such as Kitty and the Bagman, The Dish. On stage, she was in the original cast of the Melbourne production of Godspell. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, the musical. At the MTC, she did On Our Selection, The Dutch Courtesan, alongside Geoffrey Rush and Michael Burkett. She was a regular on The Don Lane Show, co-host of Channel 9's What's Cooking. But it was in February 1979 when she became a household name for her role as the convicted forger Doreen Anderson in Channel O's, at the time, Prisoner. Decades later, she would visit the same studio where she would play Sheila Canning in Neighbours. She's an actress, teacher, author, television presenter, radio host, yes, a powerhouse. She's a national treasure. And we are absolutely thrilled to have her with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colette Mann.
Oh, God. I think the older I get, the longer it gets. Sitting here waiting and people reading off things. And sometimes I don't even know I've done them. So thank you for that. At least I know what I've done.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, I guess the longer you're in the industry for, the longer your credits actually go for.
Yes, I suppose so. Although, in that time, I don't know what it is now, 54, 55 years, there's been lean times as well, and it's interesting because I think the industry's going through a bit of a lean time at the moment, and I have such a lot of students because I teach a lot now, and it's trying to explain to them that eventually, hopefully, it will pick up, because they're just starting out, and it's hard to start out when it's so lean.
What about when you started out, Colette, when you first sort of started doing performing? What made you realise that acting was something that you wanted to do professionally? Well,
I started out really as a dancer. I know, hard to believe. I was a bit of a dumpling.
But you could still do the splits.
Not anymore, but I could about 5 years ago.
That's great.
But I was at ballet school and dance school and all of that. And I, of course, wanted to be a ballerina, but, I was like, as I said, a dumpling. And I was told it was baby fat, but it just stayed on. And anyway, so about 14 or 15, although I loved dancing, my mother said to me, you should leave the dancing school and go and do professional classes, which was people like I went to Martin Borovansky for classical, and I went to Betty Pounder for jazz and all that sort of stuff. So I was in a jazz class with Betty Pounder when I was, I don't know, I must have been 20, I think, 21, doing classes with her. And one day she said, there's auditions for Godspell. And I said, I didn't know what it was, because in those days, I tell my students this now, in those days we were auditioning for things absolutely sight unseen. We hadn't heard a record of it, not even a DVD or a CD. We hadn't even heard a record, so we didn't know what the music was like. We didn't know the story of it. There weren't any such things as archival footage to look at. So you just tried to read in the library as much as you possibly could about a show called Godspell, or, John Michael Tebelak, who wrote it, and Stephen Schwartz. And so I said, yes, all right. So I went off and did the first audition, and then I got a call back. And I was teaching full-time at Williamstown High School at the time, just straight out of uni. And the callback, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make it because I was teaching, and I'm sort of like that. If I've said yes to something, I do it. And I wouldn't ask for time off, because in those days teaching was extremely unionised, and I wasn't. I was my first year, so I was too scared. Anyway, to cut a long story short, it was the school sports that day, and it rained. Thank Melbourne weather, and so I thought, I've got time to get there. So I got in my car and flew into the city and did the callback, and I got into the show. And that was my first job, grown-up job in the theatre.
It's interesting what you say, because, like, no one had any idea of Godspell and what it looked like, what it sounded like, what the characters were like.
No.
So the way you guys interpret it was strictly from the blueprint.
Yeah.
And it was it was really an original. It's like when Rocky Horror first came to Melbourne here, on Johnson Street.
Yes.
And Max Phipps was Frankenfurter.
Yes.
It was such. I mean, he had nothing to work with.
No,
apart from
because
the
in
script.
those days, that's what I say
And
to
now
my
we just see
students.
carbon copies of Tim Curry in every production.
Yes,
you
and
know.
exactly. And I say to my students now that when they come to me because I teach quite a lot of music theatre or acting for music theatre, and they come to me and they're all madly auditioning at the moment for waitress, and God help me, Evil Dead the musical, please don't. And
Are you serious?
yeah, serious. Absolutely. And there's Love Actually, the musical, and there's Heathers, the musical, because nobody's got an original thought in their brain.
No.
Waitress is original, but anyway, they're all auditioning for that, and they've all got archival footage, they've got all of the music, they've got everything on Spotify, because I'm trying to teach them to research, and it's so easy now with the Google machine,
Was there anything? Was there any like film or TV shows or theatre companies that inspired you to?
Not really. See, I've never been one to go, oh, this is what I'm going to do and have a plan. I basically said yes to everything that I was offered, and that's why I ended up directing 3 companies, and I was only 24 at that stage. Yeah. I mean, I think back and think, oh, my God, the arrogance of youth. No, I've never had, like, that sort of plan. I mean, Sammy Bays, who directed the original Godspell that I was in, he was an absolute mountain of a man and taught me such a lot, and I just kept redirecting his direction, if you know what I mean. I just basically did whatever was in front of me, and I know that's probably, people like to think they've planned their life out, but I still haven't planned it out, Here I am at the other end, and I still wait to see what turns up. And, I mean, just recently I've said no to a few things like, traditional grandmother, so excited to get a gift card that she's jumping on the couch. Oh, please, can we think up something better than that? I'd say no to those sort of things, but I very rarely say no out of hand because you learn something from every job you do.
Film, television, stage, presenting, writing. You never actually had a clear idea.
No, if it turned up, I said, yeah, all right, I'll do that.
Happened organically.
It did. Well, no, I don't want you to think I just went from job to job to job.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what happened after. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember what happened after Godspell. I stayed in Sydney because that's where I was working with Godspell. I stayed in Sydney and I did some television with the ABC up there. And then I was offered a job back in Melbourne, which was Guys and Dolls. I was in the ensemble of Guys and Dolls. I was busy really in theatre, and I wrote 2 shows with a friend that we travelled around, which now, again, arrogance of youth. I would never think of doing it now, but we just went, oh, well, we'll write this and people will come, and they did, and, somebody bought it, and then we toured around Australia with it called Hats. And then another terrible thing we wrote called Broadway Babes, which was just awful. But anyway, we did it. And then out of the blue, I was offered to audition for... Oh, I did a couple of things at the MTC. I did Gone with Hardy. That was before... And Ray Lawler, the famous Ray Lawler, directed it. Beautiful man. And just recently passed.
Yeah, I know. He was nearly 100. Wasn't
he?
Yeah,
I know. Extraordinary man. He directed it, and... Then I did Prisoner, which I was asked to audition for it and went through a series of auditions and then was lucky enough to get in. And that was 3 years out of my life. People often say, oh, why did you leave? Because when I was in London, I did a lot of screen star events, they're called, because it makes money. And you do, you meet the fans and sign things and talk about yourself, my favourite subject. And, so I'd never thought when I was doing Prisoner back in 1978 that I'd still be talking about it in 2025 because it's still on in the UK. And people say when they meet me, you haven't changed a bit. And I say, is there something wrong with your eyes? I mean, it's 47 years ago.
Is it really that long ago? I guess. So what year was that? 78? You would have started
Yeah,
filming
78.
it? Yeah.
78 we started filming it. I think it didn't start on air until 79.
So I read somewhere or heard somewhere a very long time ago that when they were casting Prisoner, the casting director went and saw all the theatre
Yes, she did.
shows.
Yeah,
and
Kerry
sort of-
Spence, her name was, and she worked for Grundy organisation, as they were then. And she came to see, I was in a show with that friend of mine that I said we wrote things. We were in Sydney at a dreadful venue called the Speakeasy Restaurant.
Where was that?
It doesn't matter. Nothing like doing a comedy show with waiters walking around banging
away.
things, you know. Anyway, we did it for, I think, 6 weeks or something, and Kerry just turned up there one night and came and spoke to me, and she said, I'd like you, when do you go back to Melbourne? And as it happened, we were going back the following week. And she said, because we were going back to do Gone with Hardy
Right.
At the Melbourne Theatre Company, and she said, I want you to audition for this show, and she told me about it. And so in those days, there were no self-tests. It was just heaven. You used to turn up and people would talk to you and they'd tell you what they wanted. It was really great. Anyway, I did a series of auditions for that. And originally I was auditioning for Lynn Warner. And after the second audition, I think, they sent me the Doreen stuff. And then I was auditioning for Doreen. And the final two auditions we did was I auditioned with Val and Sheila, and we auditioned together. And then eventually, it was a long process, I remember, because now these days, you know, you audition for something and then you get a recall and then you'll find out within 3 days or something whether you got it or not, or, you know, you're not told anything. That was a really long process. I think it was over about 3 months. And then we started in, I think it was November 1978. And we were only supposed to do 12 episodes. But once it went to air, which was in early 1979, it took off, and then we suddenly went to 2 hours a week, and that's when Carol Burns decided to leave, who played Frankie Doyle.
I'm going to have to say I was actually watching TV that night when it first premiered.
Oh, were you?
And I didn't want to watch it.
It's like when JFK died.
Yeah.
You know where you were when Prisoner first aired.
So I remember my sister saying, oh, you know, what are we watching? And she said, oh, new Australian show. And I went, oh, not another Australian, thinking it was going to be some colonial drama that just I did not relate to, you know, and it started. And then I think a couple of scenes later, Doreen and Lizzie were fighting over a bottle of nail polish. I remember this. I was so young.
It was lipstick.
Lipstick or whatever it was.
Yes, but that's amazing you remember that.
Swearing. And I went, oh, people that are talking like us. And my ears pricked up, and I just watched that whole episode as a young boy and just went, wow. You know,
Yeah,
I didn't even know what a lesbian was, I don't think.
No, well, I don't think I did either. I was a late bloomer. But it's really interesting because I get a bit sick of people saying there's no good roles for women. Like, 1978, there were 12 roles, great roles for women, and continued because every week we had yet another guest star come in, you know, like nearly everybody of an age now that I know in the industry, or the ones that have even passed, all came through Prisoner at some point. And it was because it gave women, we weren't the boy, you know, the girlfriend to the cop or anything like that anymore. We were actually the leads.
Also, we were seeing characters who were committing crimes, but like in Homicide, Division 4, Cop Shop, all those shows, we didn't see them again. The main focus was on the cops. This was what happens when they do get sent to prison.
Yes.
And how they live their lives.
Prisoner, even though we called it a serial drama, it was basically a soap opera, but it was just
It certainly became that.
It was definitely. It was basically a soap, particularly after the first 12 episodes. When it went to 2 hours a week, it became, and a soap opera is something that has an ongoing story that goes through.
Well, it's designed to go forever.
Exactly, but it was in in the words of soap opera today, whether it be here or in London, where I just recently spent 2 years, the production value, everything about it was much better. Although, let me tell you, Wentworth, which is of course based on Prisoner, or a reimagined version of Prisoner, the production values and the acting and everything is just so superior to Prisoner. And I hear people say all the time, "Oh no, I really like the old one," but really Wentworth is just an extraordinary piece of television, I think.
But I think back in 1979, where things were still a little bit primitive, shot on videotape, the lighting's actually very good in those early
Yes,
episodes.
I remember it was a guy called Rob Swift.
Yeah, right.
And it was because we were in Studio B in Nunawading, which of course now is about to be pulled down.
Yeah,
We were in Studio B, and it was always there. You never walked into that studio and the prison wasn't there. Do you know what I mean?
right, okay.
And so the corridor went all the way around the prison.
So nothing was on wheels and they'd pull it down and bump it in and bump it out.
There was another small studio where they'd put things like the governor's office occasionally and stuff like that. But no, it basically was always there. Oh, they did pull it all down when we were in the tunnel. Remember when because they built the tunnel in the studio.
Yeah, right.
And but the corridor stayed. It was quite,
At the time in 1979, I remember going to a party after the first couple of episodes with my parents, and everyone was talking about it, this new show. Everyone was playing it in the playground at school. We all, group of boys, we'd all take on the characters. I used to be Marilyn, the prostitute.
Oh, yes.
And I didn't even know what a prostitute was. I remember asking the teacher going, "Oh, what's Marilyn inside for?" And she goes, "Oh, she sells her body." So I was walking around the playground saying, "I'm selling my body," And it was just this huge thing.
It was. It was
It
massive.
just sort of happened, And,
I remember before when we were making it, because as I said...
Did you have that inkling that this is going to take off?
No. At the time, you're just really happy you've got a job and you do it. And it was the first really solid television that I had done. I'd done bits and pieces in things like Cop Shop and Division 4 and stuff like that, but like 2 or 3 scenes here and there. But to actually get up in the morning and have to go and do, as we would often do, 10 scenes in a day, and we'd be in all of them, because we all had to be everybody else's extras. It was just good to be doing what you trained all your life to do. And so I just loved it. And we didn't really think about it going to air or anything like that. And then when it did, it was funny because when we were shooting it and everything, people would say to me, when I was living in Essendon, I think at the time, and you'd go into the bank in the days where you used to go into a bank.
Yes.
And no one would talk to you, and you'd just do whatever you had to do, and leave and walk up the street and do your shopping and whatever. And then when it went to air, within 2 weeks, everybody spoke to you in the street. And I know it sounds really ungracious of me, but you want that. You want recognition. You think all you want to do is be recognised. When it happens, you go, "Oh my God, this is hideous," because you can't move anywhere.
Well, I remember one year I was walking through Barona Shopping Town, and this would have been about 1981, and the whole shopping town, it's empty now if you've seen it on Facebook. It's just this relic of a shopping centre, still stuck in the 70s, which I love. But the whole of the shopping centre, the mall, literally just stopped and was staring and whispering and pointing. And I remember said to mate, "What's going on here?" "Oh," and when I looked over, and you're just walking through the shopping centre.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, was I?
Yeah, you were just shopping with your friend.
I didn't see you. 1981. I wonder who that would have been. But it's interesting.
Like you were almost about to get mobbed.
Yeah, but the funny thing was they used to make us go and do these shopping centre appearances. And I remember it would always be on a Friday, and we would have to do it between the end of shooting, the afternoon shooting, which would end about 4:30, and then we would start again at 6 o'clock because we used to work till 9:30 at night. And they would put 2 or 3 of us in a car and drive us to somewhere like Brandon Park Shopping Centre. And we, in those days, and I'm not being dramatic, we were absolutely mobbed. It was like we were rock stars. And we'd be in costume because they didn't have enough time to get us out of costume and drive us there and let us do the appearance and then drive us back and get back in costume because, we had to work. But it was extraordinary, and it was extremely popular, as it still is in the UK. I couldn't get over it when I went to the UK, the people that go, oh, remember when you did this and you said this and you... And I just look at them and think, I have no memory of even being there and doing it, let alone...
I guess when they've seen it sort of recently, it's still stuck in their head, but to you it was a job.
But I don't think I could watch it. Oh, no, God.
Look, at the time, back in 1979, I mean, Frankie Doyle just took over. I mean,
Yes.
Every kid loved it. I remember when she passed away, when she was shot, I remember seeing graffiti everywhere saying Frankie Doyle lives on.
Yeah.
She just resonated with so many people.
She was a very good actress.
And a fine actress. And you were like a duo. And I think that was probably my favourite part of Prisoner from my memory, was when they escaped.
Yes.
And did all those things, dressed up as nuns, lived with that lovely old lady.
Yes, Patricia Connelly.
Kennedy, yeah.
Kennedy, sorry.
Yeah, I used to see her at. I used to live in Surrey Hills, and she was a resident there. She used to eat her cakes in the mornings at the cake shop. Because you both looked like you were on the run. You weren't just actors slumming it. You had greasy hair. You had bruises.
Yeah, well, in those days, we were allowed to do stuff like that, and
you could almost smell the characters.
But Carol was very... I learnt so much from her. Let's be honest, she could be difficult at times, but I learnt so much from her because she was almost method, which I'm not, I'll be honest. But she, like when she hated Doreen in studio, she never spoke to me all day, and I found that really odd because I hadn't trained or anything, and I didn't know there was such a thing as the method. I just did what felt right to me intuitively. But she had trained, and she's was an extraordinary actress. But I learned a lot from her I think we were doing that storyline of being on the run. I think it was over about a period of about 4 weeks. And it was really, we were very close and got on very well together. And I learnt a lot from her during that time. And I don't watch it, I'll be honest. I don't watch any of it. That's not anything against Prisoner. It's just that I don't like watching myself. I'm not good at it, I wouldn't do that. Oh, who does she think she is? But anyway, so, I did learn a lot from her. But she was very, very clear that she didn't want to be in a soap opera, and as we've discussed, it sort of turned into that, and so that's why she left. And it was a great way for her to go out. When I left both times, because I left after about 3.5 years, and then I came back for 3 months, about 18 months later, I wanted to be killed off, but they wouldn't kill me off.
No, they wanted to keep bringing you back. There was, even back then, like the initial first year, I thought the writing was quite clever. There was one line that stood out to me was when I think you went back to visit the lady you lived with as a nun.
Yes.
And Doreen goes back to visit her when she's released, and she finds out she's passed away. And
I have no memory of this.
Yeah, of course
this is
not.
So interesting. Yes,
go
on.
But what Doreen's just sitting in the car, sort of, and she just says she was pretty lonely. She probably wouldn't have mind croaking it. And I just thought the futility of that. I just thought it was quite beautiful.
Would have been lovely. I wish I could remember it.
Yeah. I think that's nice writing.
Yes, yeah. Well, we had some great
soap.
writers in the beginning, but like anything, we had great writers like Denise Morgan and very good directors, Rod Hardy and Graham, I've forgotten his name, who did the first episode. Lots of really good directors. But then, like anything in Australia, and this is one of my beefs, is that we always start off relatively strongly and then it sort of fizzles out. And it's got to do with money because they try to cut corners, and unfortunately, even by the time I left in 3.5 years in, we were getting storylines coming back and back and back and back.
Well, how many times can you get released, commit a crime, get sent back?
Yes, exactly.
And all that.
And also how many times, the storylines would, and when I left, then they just auditioned and found the beautiful Genevieve Lemon, who's a lovely actress. She came in and she played almost the Doreen character. And having done 10 years in Neighbours,
Was the same thing happening there, that storylines were
oh
getting
my God,
regurgitated?
yes.
Right,
Oh my
okay.
God.
I haven't watched that since it was on Channel 7.
No,
so-
well, very wise.
yes, it's...
No, it's the same, because they, particularly with stuff like that, and Neighbours prided itself on the fact that it was a learning place for young directors and young writers and all that sort of stuff. But
I guess Neighbours is a show about relationships.
the difference is that something like Neighbours that's on 5 nights a week, the story is the most important thing. So there's no help for you as far as character development, whereas there was character development in Prisoner, because it was only on, well, once an hour a week initially,
Yep.
and then 2 hours a week.
I think the thing that gets me is we see these archetypes keep turning up in these shows. Like
Oh,
there's
yeah,
always...
but there's a format, and they
Yeah.
just stick to the format. Don't get me started on
Yeah,
it.
no, and I just think we need to be a little bit more risky.
In Neighbours, I think I was probably the 12th or 14th matriarch character, and working class matriarch, because there was always had to be a working class matriarch.
Right.
And it was various other women before me, Myra de Groot and Nell Feeney and those sort of people. And then I came along, and then that's what it was. And then, but when I left, I don't know whether they didn't really replace me with anybody. But I left around the time that the show was about to be taken off air, and then put back on again, and then taken off again. So,
What are your memories of Jude Curing?
Well, her and I went to uni together, actually, years before Prisoner. I remember her as being sort of loud and weird and strange, but quite loved by people at university. And then she turned up as being an actress. And look, it was a great character that she did in Prisoner, but she was a challenge.
I can imagine she would have done a lot of on-set gags and jokes and pulling out props. Because I remember when I was working with her, she did tell me a story, because she was a great actor, but she told me a story. I think she does something to your character, rips up the teddy bear. Oh, that's right. She rips up...
she took the head off.
Yeah, she decapitates the teddy bear.
Yeah.
And she ad-libbed, and as she was walking out of the rec room or something, she was whistling the teddy bear's picnic in a menacing way. And I
have no memory of
that.
it.
I know, but that is classic Jude. She would just bring in these other things and add this.
Oh, I know.
Extra.
She was really interesting to, and the character was basically jumped off the screen, but at times wasn't easy to work in the same scene with her,
I can imagine.
I mean that in the nicest possible way.
So do I. I know, I've been there. Your approach to acting, how do you prepare for a role? Do you have a particular method or approach? Or
No, it depends on what you're doing, and it depends on the role. I mean, I do believe in research, but it needs to be the type of research that is honed to that particular character. And I've played a lot of different characters, but for instance, Sheila Canning in Neighbours, the minute I read her, I thought, this is my mother. And so I have to say I didn't work too hard on that, because I knew, my mother had been dead for many, many years before that. But it was so much of the stuff that they wanted her to say and do and be in everybody's business and stuff, that was, and I mean this with love, was my mother. And so I based her pretty much on her, and so that was fairly easy. But Doreen was, all they told me was that she was the youngest in the prison and that she wasn't real bright, and so I basically, and as I say, I wasn't trained, I hadn't been to NIDA or anything like that, and so I just did my version of what I thought they wanted, and they were very happy with what I did. And, of course, you learn more and more and more and more from every actor that you work with and every director. And
was there anyone on set, either on Prisoner or probably that was earlier, or Neighbours, that you got inspiration from?
Well, Carol Burns, yes, and the directors. You learn a lot about what cameras do and what cameras don't do, and where you can stand and where you don't stand, and
Hitting marks
hitting marks and all that sort of stuff. I can't say, I know this. I don't mean to sound big-headed, but I can't say that I looked at somebody and went, "Oh my God, I want to be them."
more their work ethic.
Jackie Woodburn always inspired me because she was playing the character for 30 years. I'd just be in a straitjacket if they did that to me. And she always cared tremendously about the script, and if you had a problem, she would talk it through with you, if you were in scenes, because her character and my character had quite a lot to do with each other. But mainly, the best thing about Neighbours, not as in inspiring me, but the best thing about Neighbours was that I spent a lot of time with the younger people, because I had a grandson in the show,
Right.
Chris Milligan, who I learnt a lot from. He was an extraordinary boy. And then towards the end, they brought in Richie Morris, who played Levi. But I spent a lot of time with the young ones like Gemma Donovan and Zimmer Anderson, and Lily Vandermeer, who played my granddaughter, Felix, who's now become a huge star in America, Felix Mallard. And I would spend a lot of time with them, helping them with their scripts and just dealing with the pace of soap opera. And that was really what inspired me, watching those kids get better and better, Not because of me helping them, but just the work that they were doing.
It was a collaboration.
Yeah, the work they were doing.
When you get a script, that's the blueprint. What are you looking at? Are you looking at objective? Are you more intuitive?
Oh, no, I teach, so the first question I always ask is, what do I want as the character, But my teaching has changed a bit over the last 3 or 4 years. Particularly, I taught for quite a bit in London as well. I did a fair amount of research and development jobs in London, where you'd go with a director and you'd read maybe 3 characters in his play. There'd be characters probably you'd never play, but you'd do these readings, and then, because they work on things harder in the UK, they don't.
In what way?
Well, you're not working off a second draft.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a 45th draft.
Yes, exactly. So I was brought in, around about the 4th or 5th draft, and not just me, but other actors, and we would read, and then we would all discuss and go, well, I didn't think this worked, but this is beautiful, and I think that character should be more to the front of the piece, and whatever. And that has kind of changed the way I teach as well. So I tend to pull the script apart and constantly ask. It's a sort of form of critical thinking in a way, is that I'm constantly asking the student in front of me, why do you think she's saying that? And why is she saying that right now? Why is he doing that? What makes her do that to him? So that they know it's more than just learning the lines and saying them.
Rather than finding a way to say it, you're finding a way why you're saying it.
Exactly. And then it will actually, because we all, none of us learn what we're going to say before we get up in the morning. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so we all have to adjust with whoever we're with. And so it's really interesting to apply that to script. And, of course, the beginning of all performances is the text. And if the text is strong, and, there's, I've just prepared a girl for a waitress audition, and the text for that, for a musical, was really good. Mm. And I kept saying to her, this is really good. She said, stop saying that. And I went, well, I'm quite surprised, because some musicals, it's like 4 lines and then we'll sing, and then 4 more lines and we'll dance. But this was, and it was really good to pull that script apart and then put it back together again, and her to have a different way of approaching it.
What is stage musical acting? What's the difference between that and drama? I mean, I find it difficult to see a musical. I remember seeing The Lion King many years ago and cringing at them, going, Simba, this is, all that sort of stuff.
Really?
Oh,
I loved The Lion King. No.
Oh, this is the old one.
Yeah, but Well, the difference is, I used to say that Neighbours was the music theatre of television because the style was much bigger than you would play in even, say, Blue Heelers. The style of Neighbours, particularly when, by the time I left, was very energised.
Right.
But music theatre, I teach a lot of it. I used to teach classes in it at Ministry of Dance years ago. The thing is that it's the same energy and it's all the same rules as you would in a play, but at some point you know you're going to sing, and you only sing because talking won't do it for you anymore. And then when you've sung and singing's not doing it for you, inside, feeling-wise, you dance. So you've got to see it as climbing the mountain a little bit. And so music theatre acting, you still have to find the objective. Yep. You still have to find what obstacle that person is trying to overcome in that particular scene. If you have to, you action the text. Action the text in songs too is really helpful. So you still do all of the things that you would normally do with like a Chekhov or a Shakespeare or whatever, but it's just that it's played with a slightly more energised feel. That's what I think anyway. I mean, I'm not, the oracle on it, but I've done enough musicals in my life to know how it feels.
How do you find that borderline of that slight, that's still energised, but is it something that comes naturally? Do you reach a point?
Well,
Is it the good direction?
Well, you see, now it's so much easier than it was when I started in musicals, because I did musicals for, right up until I started doing Prisoner, which was, I'd been in the industry 12 years by that stage. But the thing is that it's much easier now because we have mics either here or here.
Right.
So they don't have to project as much, but you still have to have that inner motor going, and because even young students now, when they're working on the floor in a class, will think they're being naturalistic when they're talking to you like that, and you go, well, do you normally talk like that in your real life? You don't.
No.
I mean, you and I are talking without microphones and we can hear each other.
Yeah.
And this is the same as you would play if you were in a musical at this level, unless the character's yelling for some reason or not yelling,
One thing I've noticed, like when I go to cast something, a production, I go through the show reels and I'm sick to death of seeing the female actors crying in a show reel.
Yes.
And the male actors pulling out a gun, yelling at someone.
Really?
Yeah. Like doing a mafia thing. I want to see the other way around. I want to see the men crying and the women kicking ass.
That's interesting. I haven't seen it that way. I do know that when I was teaching at VCA for a while, some years ago, all the girls at that time, they were in the age. It was a foundation course, not the degree course, and all the girls, I was giving them monologues initially, and then we moved on to two-handers and then group stuff. And they all wondered why I hadn't... And I'd given them basically light or slightly comedic, light dramedy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they were all wondering why they couldn't cry, why they couldn't have a dramatic piece where they could cry. And I said, that doesn't necessarily mean you can act. I mean, my belief is if you can make people laugh and you can make them cry, then you're getting somewhere to being an actor.
Oh, yeah, light and shade.
Yeah. But a lot of particularly young girls, think the only way you can be dramatic is by crying. And I used to talk to some of the young kids in Neighbours, like they'd come to me and go, oh, it says she cries here, what am I going to do? Like they'd be scared of doing it because you've got to kind of do it on cue. And I'd say to them all the time, find another way. If you don't feel it coming up, and you do feel it physically,
yeah.
And it may not, particularly if you're doing it the fourth or fifth time. I say just find another way. Do it, be angry with it, be frustrated with it, rather than being sad or whatever, Yeah. I remember when I did MDA for the ABC. It was a couple of episodes. I was playing the mother of a boy who had had a very, very bad motor vehicle accident, and they were going to take his organs. And Dana Reid directed it, and I saw her just recently when I was in London, and she says, I always remember you had to cry basically for 2 weeks, which I did because the character just cried incessantly over it. Because I didn't know. You see, you learn stuff when you're I didn't know at that time, admittedly I'm talking, this is almost 20 years ago, that they keep them alive while they take their organs. Did you know that?
No.
Oh, they do. I don't know if they do now, but they did then. And so my character Daphne finds out that they're going to keep him on the ventilator and the thing that's pumping his heart or whatever, and then they take the organs, and then he's allowed to die after that. And of course that upsets Daphne no end, as it would upset Colette no end. So basically I had to cry for 2 weeks, and I just had the worst migraines for 2 weeks after that. But it was very easy for me to do because Dana did a very interesting thing. About 2 weeks before I was cast, and then about 2 weeks before we were to start shooting, somebody from the ABC rang me and said, what would you like? Because the boy playing my son, of course, had no lines or anything because he was supposedly brain dead. Interesting tag to the story. And they said, what would you like him to look like? And I said, oh. And at the time, I had children, but I had a stepson who was about 17 at the time. And you know, he lived with us a lot of the time, and I was very close to him. And I said, oh, can he be tall, thin and blonde? Because that's what Reese looked like. And I thought, well, it'll be easier to think it's Reese on the table, you know. And so I thought that was fantastic of Dana to ask me that. And anyway, so that's what they did. And this boy was laying there and hardly spoke to me for the whole 2 weeks, which is fine. He's now grown up to be a really clever director. Mark Loughran Taylor, his name is. And he just directed American Psycho at Chapel of Chapel. And he was just there on the slab in front of me. And I've also done a reading. He and his lovely wife wrote something, and I did a reading for them. So, you know, you never know where these things will end up, do you?
No, you don't. I know. It's an interesting story you told, because when I did MDA, I pretty much had to do the same thing, cry all the way through it.
Yeah.
Same situation, I think, but it was my wife that was dying, and our baby. I think our baby died first. But I got a rubber doll for the baby.
Oh, did you?
And I had to do all these crying scenes, and I think we did about 5 takes. And then the makeup artist, and I was so drained.
Yeah,
and she goes,
it is exhausting.
And she came up to me and she goes, Tim, do you want a blower? I said, I beg your pardon.
Yes. Because
I don't know if we're meant to give these secrets away.
No, they use blowers that have menthol in them, and they blow it into your eyes. But I have used it occasionally on Neighbours when I've had to be, you know, I've done all the crying scenes, and then an hour and a half later you come back, and that's when the scene after you've cried. So I let them do it then, you know, for instance. But I don't see anything wrong in any of that.
So for those of you who don't know, it's about this size, and it's coated in menthol, and she'll come up to you and go, and your eyes just go bing.
In the old days in Prisoner, they used to put Vicks in our eyes.
Oh, come on.
Seriously.
Everyone would have stunk.
Yeah, but not only that, it used to hurt like mad.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because menthol actually
it
stings.
Does,
yeah.
See, I remember this one years ago. I can't even remember what show it was. And she was crying into a hanky. I'm thinking, God, you stink. You know, with like, she'd put a cut onion in it.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
I'm thinking we're really scraping.
That's scraping the bottom of the barrel.
What are you doing?
But I don't think there's anything worse than an actor who can't cry. Fine, absolutely fine, but do not pretend.
Yeah.
I call that boo-hoo acting. You know, they go, it's terrible. And I worked with a few of them.
Yeah, I've seen a few of them. I know who you're talking about. But my favourite crying scene in a film is China Syndrome, where Jane Fonda's reading the news and tears are coming down.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Tears are coming down her eyes. She's like a newsreader. And tonight at the nuclear power point, she's delivering like she's delivering the news, but these tears are...
Well, yes, and it's luck too that the camera caught it, because
we don't know what the other 5 takes were like.
No, exactly. I remember one time I was in bed having had a heart attack. This is Sheila. And the character playing my son, the actor playing my son, Damien Richardson, was sitting talking to me, and he's a beautiful actor, and and then she's supposed to not hear him, supposedly, but she does hear him, and then he leaves, and I had to turn onto my side towards camera, because camera was here, and then be crying, and I was just really lucky, because it started just as towards the end of his speech. I could feel it here. And then when I turned, because of turning from up here to there, the 2 tears came out exactly at the right time. And I remember the beautiful Mike Murphy, who was a great mentor of young directors and everything, was sitting in the control room, because I think it was a young director, and or sitting behind the monitor, and he came out and went, "That's the money shot," he said to me. And I thought, if you only knew, it was just because I turned over and it was sort of like all of it fell out, So anyway.
I mean, you know that. You see it coming. And
yes,
you know how the camera, you can work for the camera and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I love that sort of stuff. That's it. So, changing over time. What's the difference between the prisoner acting and the Neighbours acting?
No difference.
Nothing?
No difference in that. But I noticed when I went to do Blue Healers... And I hadn't done television for quite a long time before that. I'd been on stage and also doing things like What's Cooking for 3 years and presenting and I did radio for 3AW on and off for over 12 years. Not all the time, but, I used to fill in for people. And so I hadn't done television for quite a long time. And Richard Franklin asked me to play this role. It was to play... Caroline Craig's mother. And it was a 2-ep role. And when I got on set, it was really interesting, because I noticed that they were all pulled back a bit, a bit more naturalistic. I don't say mumbling, because none of them mumbled. They were all wonderful actors on Blue Healers, John Wood and Bill McGuinness and all of those. But it was a lot, I felt, smaller than when I had remembered the last time I was on television, which might have been Prisoner, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I remembered that it did get pulled back a bit. And so I went back with them. I was quite happy to do that. And it depends on the piece, really. Like if you're playing a character like Sheila, most of the time she's out there. She's up there and she's out there, Don't you ever do that to me again. She's out there. But at the same time, she had her moments where she'd go, I can't believe he's dead. Tell me he's not dead. And pull it back. So it depends on the role. It depends on the script too.
Mm.
But I don't think we're anywhere near as performative as we were back in the 70s and 80s.
Then. There was certainly a distinct style.
Yeah.
A distinct Australian style too.
Yes, yeah.
I think. I mean, those original Crawford shows, the exteriors never even had audio.
Yes.
You see the cops discovering a body and there was no audio. It was just music, and so they had to physicalise what they were
It was
saying.
definitely a more performative style,
Yeah.
but as I say, it just depends on the piece now.
How did you find presenting work? I remember you being on the Don Lane show, being a regular on that. How did that even happen?
Well, I left Prisoner and I was at a dinner party with somebody and they said, she's funny. And, I was talking to somebody and this person said, oh, you're funny. Have you ever done presenting work? Which I'd done a little bit of hosting and stuff, particularly even while I was doing Prisoner. I would, if we had special nights or something, they'd always ask me to host them, like if we were raising money for something or doing something like that. And so I said, oh, okay. And she said, we're looking for somebody. There was somebody doing what I ended up doing, but they weren't happy with her, or Don didn't like her or something, I can't remember. And they said, we're looking for somebody to take over from such and such, I don't even remember her name. And you just go on and talk about, you do something and you go on and talk about it. And I said, I think I can do that. So the first night I went on and talked about leaving Prisoner and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you meet Don in the afternoon, and he and I got on really well. I really liked him. And what I liked about him too was that he didn't care where the laughs came from in the segment, as long as the segment was funny. He didn't try to be the one to be funny. Do you understand what I mean? He was quite happy to be the straight man for me.
Yeah.
And so very quickly we kind of fell into a thing where it was a bit like, I know this is going back probably well before your time, but there were a American couple called George Burns and Gracie Allen.
Yes.
Well, we sort of became like that I was the dumb blonde and he was the clever host. And in a way, it's another acting job.
Well, that's what I was sort of aiming towards. Were you performing?
Yeah. I mean, and they...
Because they'd always say, next up we've got the zany Colette Mann.
Yeah, exactly, zany.
They'd start playing Baby Elephant Walk, which I thought was a bit off, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. But anyway, they'd never do it now. But anyway.
No.
But it was interesting because I had researchers who would find something quirky for me to do, whether it was jumping out of an aeroplane or doing the army obstacle course or getting 7 massages in a week, and I had a cameraman who I eventually married, and now we're divorced, but who used to go out and shoot stuff with me, and we'd put it into a package, and then I'd go on.
Were you involved in the editing of that?
Yep.
Wow,
yep.
Good.
Which was good. I mean, I can't say I'd sit down in front of an Avid now and do it or anything, but he was a freelance cameraman and an editor, and so he would shoot it. Originally it was shot on film, that's how old I am, but then it went to digital fairly quickly after I started on Don Lane, and then I would sit with him in the edit suite, and sometimes they'd have a Channel 9 editor there as well, and we'd sort it out from there. So I did that for about 3 years I did it, and I was on twice a week. So it was quite busy because
because he was only on twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays.
Yeah, so it took a while to sort of get into the throw of things. Like we went to New Zealand and shot things in New Zealand and all that sort of stuff. But it was a great learning curve. And as I say, you get to learn a lot if you're open to it.
What do you think we do best in our screen culture? What makes it distinctly Australian?
Well, I mean, things like Working Dog, did The Castle, and I also did The Dish, tiny role in The Dish for them. And they're what I think are really distinctly Australian movies and done well.
Why? Why are they distinct? What makes them Australian?
As you said about Prisoner, these people talk like me. People can relate to the characters, and I think our film industry is good when it's fairly raw and not pretending to be America or England. Don't get me wrong, I love English drama. I love it, and that's one of the reasons I went over to work in England, because I just love it so much, because the scripts are so good and the performances are so good. But and I watch a lot of American television too. I don't watch very much free-to-air anymore, but I watch lots of streaming and SBS. I love a bit of Scandinavian noir. I love that. And I'm very good with the subtitles. I'm almost speaking Danish, I think, now. But I just think that Australian movies have a sort of a rawness to them that is interesting and draws us in. Like the Proposition was that film with Guy Pearce in it, and he's out.
The Nick Cave one. Yep.
Yes, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and that was quintessentially Australian. The Australian stuff that we do really well, I think, is world class. But I don't think it's any good when we try to copy.
No.
You know.
Look, you're dead right. when we do, this is going to be an Australian version of Sex and the City.
Yes.
This is going to be an Australian version of Sons of Anarchy. This is an Australian version of Breaking Bad. No.
No.
So what do Australians do well? We know we do prison dramas well, because I guess modern Australia was a prison.
Yeah, but I don't think that means we should start doing another prison drama.
No, that ain't gonna happen.
I think...
What do we do well?
Well, I think we do... I think when we do drama well, like the ABC do a lot of really good drama. And I just think that when we stick to what we know, we stay in our own lane. I think we do good drama.
And good documentaries.
Oh, yeah, we do good documentaries, most definitely.
What's your favourite Australian film? Do you have one?
The Proposition, I think.
Yeah.
Because I love Guy. I worked with him in Snowy River, the series, not the film. He's a lovely, gentle human being, and he's become a huge, big, fat star overseas and hasn't changed at all. He's still the same person. If you run into him, he still asks you how your kids are and stuff like that. But I thought that particularly the music, and also the fact that I don't say all stuff should be set in the outback, but in the Proposition, the thing is that it's the country becomes like another character in the film.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The extraordinary vistas and landscapes are amazing.
I like to see a film where the landscape or the house actually become a character themselves.
Yes,
we had Lindy on last week, and we were talking about Malcolm, and that house in Malcolm was a character.
Yes, yes.
Just like the mansion in Sunset Boulevard is a character.
Yes, exactly.
I love, that landscape, and I think it's important for writers and filmmakers to write within or create a world.
Yeah.
Create that world. Where do you see things are going with the AI business happening?
Oh, I think...
Are you concerned, or do you think it's going to enhance actors? Or is it going to... do you do voiceover at all? Because apparently it's decimated that industry.
No, I used to do a lot of voiceovers, but like everything, when I went into Neighbours, I wasn't available to do it, and so they just forget you exist,
Right.
So I haven't done a lot since then. Interestingly, I was asked to audition and I had to send a self-tape of my voice to England through my English agent, because I still have an agent over there, and I did it was a 30-second voice piece, and I've done hundreds of those in the past.
Yeah.
So I put it down on my phone and sent it to my agent. They said they wanted a quintessential Australian voice, which I've been told that's what mine is. Like, it's not too posh and it's not too broad,
It's
right?
not too cultured, not too...
Yeah, exactly. So I just read the piece, which was about a 30-second piece, and sent it to my agent, and they're English, and so they think I'm just, Christmas, because I can speak with an Australian accent. And so they sent it off. I got it back and within a day and a half or something, and they said, yes, we really like her, and we really like her mature tone. I thought, oh, okay. And they said, we'd like her to do it again. And so I went back to my agent and said, yeah, but what do they want? Do it again. That doesn't help. Yeah, that's not a note. I got back from them. She sounds like she sounds as though she's talking to her children on the back porch, her grandchildren on the back porch, with more gravitas. That was the note I got. So I didn't know whether they said they want me to sound like I'm talking to my grandchildren, or they don't want me to sound like that.
Is this a directional feedback?
That was all I got.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did it again and lowered my voice a bit more, and it was something like "Little Bo Peep has lost her sheep," right? That was the beginning. That was the first line. It was something to do with because her staff weren't using Amazon Business or something. Anyway, but then what happened was I didn't get it, and it would have been good money because it was English money, but when I heard it, I think, I hope I'm not decrying the wrong person, but when I heard it on air and saw the ad, I think it's Kate Raisin. I'm not sure, but it sounds to me like Kate Raisin, who's a lovely actress. and she's just basically got a much more cultured Australian accent than I have. So whoever does it, if it's Kate, they say, little Bo Peep had lost her sheep. Maybe because, her staff were not using Amazon Business,
Right.
And I thought, well, if they told me to do that, I would have done that. Do you understand?
No, totally.
I mean, good on whoever got it.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that a lot with the ads. Oh, look, I've done 2 big ads over the last 12 months, and I did Follies for the Victorian Opera Company, which was great, but I was just cast in that. I didn't even have to audition. But it's the 2 ads I've done, you shoot them at home, and you really, the second ad, the one that I do for Seek.com, which is still on, I did eventually meet the director on Zoom, and he directed me the way he wanted me to do it, and I knew when we'd finished the Zoom I pretty much had it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was talking to him directly. But mostly you're just doing it into a vacuum because you don't know what they really want on a self-tape, because you're doing it either at home, or I sometimes do my big self-tapes. If I've got 3 or 4 scenes to do, I do it at Brave Studios over in Footscray.
Are you doing that? But why should you have to? Like, what do you think of this whole concept of self-tape? I think it's immoral.
Well, you don't get paid for it, which I think is...
Because you're an actor, you're not a filmmaker.
No. And I do some of them at home. My son, who's a criminal defence lawyer, shoots them for me. But all this thing of uploading them onto a different platform and all that sort of stuff, and sometimes it won't upload, and, all of that sort of stuff. And I find it, because I'm not technologically brilliant, I get by, but I find it really stressful. And sometimes to just do a self-tape for an ad, they ask you to do it 3 different ways. And I mean, usually the script is 2 lines if you're lucky.
And have you seen the way the scripts are formatted for commercials these days?
Yeah, like it doesn't make any sense.
No, they don't.
And then there's action 1, action 2, action 3, and can you do 3 variations of all of these actions? So you're doing 9 scenes. Admittedly, some of them are only 15 seconds long. 9 scenes. Then you've got to do the slate, and then as well as that, you've got to fill out this enormous form with all the information you've just said on the slate. I don't understand.
I got one not that long ago. I might have been a couple of years ago, and I'm not really interested in being an actor anymore, but I got this one that the agent sent through, which was a commercial of the character watching a drummer playing drums. I had to do a self-tape. I was of me watching a drummer. Really.
Yeah, well, I would have said no to that.
It was a huge commercial.
Yeah.
Like there was special effects. He was spinning around. I think it was for Crown or something like that. But really.
I know, but the thing is...
what are you meant to do?
Well, they're saying, my son, who I just said is a criminal defence lawyer, his attitude to AI is that eventually AI will take over from casting directors.
Well, if people are having job interviews with AI, you know that, don't you?
Yes, yeah. And I think you can actually, I'm at the moment, I know this is your last question, but as in you haven't asked me yet, but I'm going to answer it, is that what I'm working on at the moment, I'm about to become the acting coach for someone, I can't say who, on set, and prepare him for the role and then work with him on set early next year through to maybe, I don't know, middle of next year, and it's all going ahead. But with that, even that, I had to jump through a whole lot of hoops. I mean, he wanted me, as somebody who knows me, he wanted me, but I had to jump through all these hoops, even pass by the casting directors, and I'm saying I'm an acting coach. I'm not going to be on set. I mean, I'll be on set with him because he wants me there, and the director, who's an American director, has agreed, and the writer has agreed. But I had to go through an American casting director and answer all these questions. And I thought, what's it to do with them? So it's bizarre.
Are you scared that AI is going to replace actors?
Well, I mean, they made that girl, didn't they? Wasn't there an AI girl they made?
And she's got representation, apparently. She's with an agent.
Well, it's with an agent.
Yeah, well.
I don't know. I mean, I know this is very selfish of me. It's not really going to affect me all that much because I think, I could fall off the twig by the time that happens. But
No, because it's just getting better and better every day.
But
it really is. Like, I've got your voice now. I could turn that into any character.
Really?
All I need to do is put it in a machine.
I know they're telling us constantly, and I don't know whether to trust them or not, on Instagram that we have to opt out of something on Meta because they're going to use all our information. I don't know. I think, like everything, like even with the internet when that started, and I'm old enough to know when that started, and we all sort of stood back from it a bit because it was a bit scary. The internet, what was it called? Something the superhighway, I remember.
Right, okay.
But the thing is that I think these things are developed before we have actually developed the ethics around it. Like IVF, things like that was developed before the ethics caught up. And I think that's a worry. I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
I mean, it's very easy to do a voiceover. You just grab a voice, type it in, and you've got it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, see, you know more than I do.
You just get the script, you type it in, choose which voice you want, click it, and it'll give you a narration. It can get you someone, a man's journey, across, whatever you want for your trailer or your voiceover. I can take Doreen's voice and type in my own script and get her to narrate, I don't know, the Frankie Doyle story or something.
Really?
Yeah. So things like that, is it theft?
Well, I think it is a form of theft, but I mean...
But in another way, I mean, say for example, The Simpsons, which we've had for 30-something years, something happens to Julie Kavanaugh, we can keep it going. If those actors aren't around anymore,
yes,
we can keep it going.
Yeah, but
do you know what I mean? Like,
but if she suddenly fell off the twig, there would be a point to them keeping it going, and she wouldn't be taking work off her because she's not here in the world.
No, I guess.
But her estate would. Everybody got madly excited when we finally got Netflix and all of those things, and all those streaming services. But the streaming services don't pay residuals.
They don't?
So, no. And so in the case of, Prisoner's a different kettle of fish because none of us actually signed the contract or put a line through it on the contract from Prisoner.
I remember those old contracts would actually state, like, things that haven't been invented yet.
Yeah, and all it was
technology that's
it
still...
said, it said ancillary rights, that's what it was called. And it had nothing, like there was nothing under ancillary rights with an underline, nothing under it. And none of us knew what ancillary rights were. However, for Neighbours, all the time I was in Neighbours, I was being paid residuals, while it was playing on Channel 10 and Channel 5 in London. But now it's been sold to Amazon, and Amazon don't pay residuals, and Fremantle won't pay them, even though my contract is with Fremantle.
So why won't they pay them?
Fremantle?
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly enough, Fisk, which I did, and I did 2 seasons, I did 2 episodes in 2 different seasons, I still get residuals for that, but that's the ABC, even though it's on Netflix now. I don't get anything from Netflix.
From Netflix.
But I get because it's on ABC iView, I think. Still, I get residuals from that, and I just think.
Do you feel as if you haven't been looked after?
Oh well, yes. I mean, all actors feel like that. Is that they don't understand that they are using your work. They're using your work to make money for their business, and using you and not paying you for it. I'm not saying I should be paid the same amount of money as Netflix will make out of showing Fisk or whatever it is, but we should be paid something.
Who was it? Was it the Happy Days cast who found out there was a pinball machine in Las Vegas that had, Mr. C and the Fonz and all that on it, and they had no idea? And I think it was Happy Days or Laverne, something like that, and they just went, "Hey, what's going on here? That's us."
Yeah, but you see, they've all tried it on back in the day with Prisoner. Not long after we went to the 2 hours a week, they then decided that they would hire an editor, and an editor would sit for 2 or 3 days and put together these four telemovies.
Based on the episode. That's how we got the Frankie Doyle story.
That's right, and the Doreen Byrne story, or Doreen Anderson I was then. And but the way they did it was they got an editor to put together, you would know, all these scenes out of the 12 episodes, the original 12 episodes. And apart from the fact that that was a bad thing to do, they originally were not going to pay us for them, and because they said it was their first play or something, to do with residuals. But we went to court about that, and I was the union rep at the time in my red days.
Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't care now. But the time I was very unionised, young. And we fought it, and we got paid for those, depending on how many scenes we were in. Like the Frankie Doyle story I was in, probably, say there were 35, or say there were 50 scenes in an hour and a half movie. I was in probably 30 of those, and Carol was in 50. So she would be paid more for that than I was. But then the Doreen Anderson story that followed it, I got more for that than you. So I think we all got something like $1,000 each for those.
I remember reading that they had planned, this is way back then.
And they were going to make heaps of them, and we stopped them from making any more. And we also started arguing towards them getting residuals. But what we got by us going to court was, or before the Arbitration Commission, was we got residuals for everybody coming after us. So Jason and Kylie have a lot to thank me for, which I remind them every time I see them,
right.
Because I was the one arguing the case. And, so we got residuals, because in those days, anybody working for Grundy organisation didn't get residuals. Crawford's always paid them, always. But we didn't. We never got them until then. I went into Neighbours for 10 years, and I thought, well, this is owed to me. I fought for it, and now.
Yeah, good on you.
So,
Where do you feel the Australian film and TV industry is going? You mentioned like the streaming, and I keep hearing they're starving for content and all this rubbish. I mean, is that true? I mean, where are we going to? Have we fallen off the block? Are we about to explode? Is there going to be another renaissance? Where would you like to see it go?
I'd like to. I mean, it's always been my thing, and not because I'm ageing too, but that basically we are more youth related than, say, England or even America. Like when I went to England, I got an agent, a fantastic agent, who's been wonderful to me. But I said to her, but you know that I'm 72 or 73, whatever I was at the time. And she said, looked at me as though I was crazy.
Yeah,
do you know
right.
what I mean? Whereas here, they worry, like you have to, on those dreadful forms you have to fill out for self-tapes, you have to say how old you are. And I'm thinking, well, they'll start to think, because they have to pay more insurance for me because I'm 75.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. And so we're because we're only a young country, I think, this is my opinion, we're very youth-oriented. And so, like, for instance, something like, we're going back now, but something like The Golden Girls would never have been made in Australia because they think nobody's interested in 3 old ladies. Or 4, I can't remember how many were in it. 4, counting the mother. And so there's like women in when I was in London, Penelope Wilton, who is, I think she's 82 now, she was doing Downton, and she was on stage every night doing a thing, playing the Queen Mother with Luke Evans. Fabulous play. I can't remember what it was called, but she was brilliant. I saw it twice. And on stage all night. She was.
Well, look at Kathy Bates in that American show. She's 75 or whatever.
In Matlock.
Yeah, Matlock.
That's right. And she constantly says how old she is in it. I'm a 76-year-old woman, she says.
But she's got this full-time, high expectation job.
Yes,
that,
exactly.
A 75-year-old person.
But we would never make that here. And so I think we're very, very concerned with making stuff for younger kids, which I think is great because we need to, build that up, and very on diversity and all of that, which I think also is great. But part of that inclusivity is ageism, and we're not so good on that end.
No, I've noticed that.
Looking
back at your body of work, are there any projects or productions that are really meaningful to you that either personally or professionally?
Probably, all of them for one reason or another, but probably one that stands out is Priscilla, because 3 weeks before I started rehearsal for that, my marriage broke up. And, as everybody will know, it's a devastating time because it came out of the blue. And I had to leave and go and rehearse for Priscilla because I'd done the workshops for Priscilla long before it got up to being a production, and I couldn't do the Sydney version, which was when it opened in Sydney.
Right.
And Genevieve Lemon did that. I went to Sydney and rehearsed for 3 weeks, which was torture because I'd had to leave my boys at home. They were 18 and 16 at the time, and they wanted to be on their own. They didn't want their father to come and look after them. And so that was torture, and I did the 3 weeks in Sydney rehearsing, but I was very grateful to people like the gorgeous little Josie Lane, who was also cast in the show at the same time, being a diva, and I had taught her years ago, and Andrew Broadbent, who was also learning the show. There were 3 of us learning it at the same time. And then I came back to Melbourne, and I was back in Melbourne for 2 weeks, and then we started teching and all that in Melbourne. And then we ran for, I think, 9 months in Melbourne, and then went to New Zealand with the show, and then came back and did a Sydney return season. So I did almost 2 years with that. And because it was such a joyous show, hard work, because I was 10 different characters, not all at the same time, but constantly changing of clothes, just so much changing of clothes and wigs and makeup and, but eyelashes on, eyelashes off, all of that.
Wow, yeah.
But it was such a busy show for me, not only being on stage singing and dancing, kicking my legs up, it was also busy off stage as well because you were constantly running. And the boys in the show, because there was something like, I can't remember, there were maybe 21 boys and 3 women, they were all fantastic and so wonderful to me. And I've still got very close friends from that show, and my closest friend in the world I met on that show. And being all gay men, they were just fantastic and really supported me. That I didn't tell any of them at the beginning, but as they finally woke up to what was going on.
Supported you in what way with what was happening in your personal life?
Just looking after me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like making sure I was invited to everything and
good to you.
And all of that. And I have very close friends from the show, and it was the best thing to do at a time where my personal life was black, dark. I would go out every night, dressed as a giant koala with glitter all over me, and people dancing and singing in the aisles because people loved the show. So I think that's probably, and the other one at the MTC that I really loved doing, and we did it twice. We did it at the MTC and then STC later, was Urinetown. And that was great because I did it with one of my closest girlfriends, Kristen O'Leary, and that was a lovely show to do too, directed by Simon Phillips.
Is there a character or a piece of work that you'd love to play or be part of? I mean, is there something that, I'd love to do that?
I'd quite like to do, before I die, I'd quite like to do a Shakespeare, because I went to the Shakespeare's Globe and worked over there, as in I studied with them for 8 weeks and then I performed with them for about a week, which was part of the fellowship that I did. But I've never done it in Australia. I teach it because I'm qualified to teach that, because I did a teaching course while I was at the Globe, and I love it, but I've never actually done it in Australia. I've auditioned a couple of times, but both times that there was a possibility I could do it, something else came up and whatever. So, yeah, I'd quite like to do a Shakespeare before I fall off the twig.
Fall off the twig?
Yes.
Okay. Theatre company has called me up and said, Tim, we want you to do 3 plays, in this season. What do you want to do? And I've replied back and I've said, look, you know what, I want to do a theatrical version of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I'd like to offer Colette one of the roles. Would you do something like that?
Oh, yeah.
And who would you like to play the other? Which one would you like, the Bet or the Joan Crawford role?
I'd have to think about that. Probably Bet, I think.
Oh, yeah. Who'd you like to play opposite as the Joan Crawford? Think of someone else.
Louise Siverson.
I'll tell, she'd love that. Would people come and see Colette Mann and Louise Siverson doing Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I would think they would, but...
I think it'd be great.
But, it's getting like a theatre company to take a risk on something like that,
What about Harold and Maude? Would you like to do that on stage?
Oh, I'd love to do Harold and Maude's a really fantastic play and fantastic film. I love the film. It's one of my favourite films.
That'd be a great one to do.
Yes, I'd love to do that, but I don't know how they would do it on stage because there's so much risk taking in that film. On the back of motorbikes and stuff like that. So I'm not sure how it would transpose to...
AI, we can do holograms.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so interesting. But, it's like everything, and this is not me complaining about it because I really had my time at MTC. I did lots of stuff at MTC in Roger Hodgman's era.
Oh, yeah.
And then with Simon Phillips, he used me 3 or 4 times. But it changes, there's change of top management and stuff like that. And then and then they forget that you exist after that,
You're right. Does that happen with casting here as well? Or typecasting? After Doreen, were you just...
That's one of the reasons why I did the Don Lane show for
Yeah.
3 years, so that people wouldn't just see me as that. But no, I don't think it's so much that. It's just that, a lot of the same people turn up in things because people know that they're good and that they will turn up and they will do the job and things like that. So you just have to wait for your turn, And I've had my turns through the time. I'm not saying that I haven't. And I wonder if there's another turn for me coming. I don't know if there is or there isn't. But I intend to, I'm writing a book at the moment, which when I say I'm writing it, I've thought about it.
You've written a couple of books. There's another one I noticed called It's a Man's World or something.
Yes, I wrote that back in the 90s.
Right.
But and then I wrote one when my son broke his leg and I couldn't work because I had to be home with him because he was in a Zakharov cage.
So what's the one you're writing now?
Oh, well, it's a cross between, it's kind of half talking about teaching and acting, and the other part of it is talking about my life and trying to use examples from my life that I use when I'm teaching, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I teach from my own experience. I've done lots of classes with people since I've become a teacher, I've done classes in London, and as in gone to learn in classes in London. I've audited lots of American teachers, and so I just I want to teach, but I haven't trained myself, so I teach from my own experience. So I'll say, this is how I found this character, or this is what I did here, or whatever. So the book's kind of a combination of both, talking about objectives. What do you want? What do you want in your life? What do you want for the character? Things like that.
Reaching for objectives and taking it from there. That's good, yeah. Yeah, good. So plans for the future. You've got a film possibly coming up next year. Indie films. Have you ever been approached to do indie films?
Oh, yes. I did a very small part in a indie film earlier this year with a young crew who were really good and very respectful, and it was a clever script, and it's a short film. I'm not sure what's going to happen to it. I haven't seen it yet, but I've only got one scene in it, but it's such an interesting idea. I was happy to do it. So, and it all was shot in a day. So
yeah, it's easy.
And I'm happy to do things like that if the script's good. Yeah. And this script was really good and funny, so I was happy to do it.
So there's lots of scope, lots of area things that you're doing at the moment.
Bits and pieces, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that at the moment, because when I did Follies earlier this year for the Victorian Opera, even though it was 2.5 weeks rehearsal and then basically a week's playing, because they do it at the Palais, which is a massive venue, and it was hugely successful, but it nearly killed me. Dancing and singing and arms up and arms down.
It's the energy, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like I just think,
and I thought, thank God it's only 6 performances. I'd be dead if I had to do it every night. So I think my days in musicals are over, which I'm quite happy about. I was, but I wouldn't mind doing a play or something like that. But, I only want to do things I want to do.
Why is that?
Well, because I've done a lot of shit in my time. And I've done it because I've had to earn the money, you know. And I've had to do... I think that's one of the reasons I stayed in Neighbours for 10 years, was for the money.
Are there certain things that you just know you're going to get excited about this?
Well, yeah. When Kitty Flanagan asked me to play Daphne in Fisk, I was so excited about that, because I admire her so much, and it was such a great experience. And then when the second role came up in the second season, different woman, Irma, and she asked me to do it. It was only one day and about 4 lines. I jumped at the chance because I had such a great experience the first time. I like doing things that people are not sure if it's me or not. A lot of people didn't even recognise me in Fisk, and I think that's great, It means that you have, not only because of the wig and stuff, but you have transformed. It's a completely different person. Sheila, and I'm paying for it now, but Sheila, because I was working with tall boys, which I was most of the time, and I am short anyway and getting shorter, I think, I demanded that I wear high heels. Obviously on drugs that day, and and basically standing in high heels on concrete floors for 10 years has really wrecked my hips, basically. But it really changed the way I walked and everything, and that's very, very part of her character. She was a busybody, and she sort of went everywhere in these high heels, because I couldn't walk like that in high heels. Yeah. I just had to get places fast so I could take them off. Was that it became part of her character, and that came from the shoes too.
Would you have liked to stay around that show longer?
No.
You left when you did.
10 years was enough. Was too long.
It is a long time.
I should have left after 5, but I didn't, because the money was good and I was enjoying it at the time. But the last 2.5 to 3 years on it, except for the beautiful boys I was working with, just drove me to distraction. I just wanted to get a gun and shoot people.
I think you know deep down when it's time to leave the party.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
yes.
Well, Colette, thank you for coming into TNT. I hope you've had a good time.
Oh, I've been here a while.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your stories. It's been really beautiful, so it's a pleasure to have you in the studio. And
Thank you very much for having me.
thank you for joining us. Please subscribe below, give us a comment, give us a like, let us know who you'd like on future episodes. Until then, please enjoy. Thank you so much, Colette. So see you next week. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.
Mwah. Mwah.